What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. I'm Mason Kinahan alongside Nico, aka Elite Takes. Welcome back to the show.
Great, glad to be here. Excited to talk about it. Probably a little more excited than you, but
yeah, it's been a journey this year. It's been a journey.
It really has been. Even from an outside perspective, I cannot believe how much of a journey it has been for the Commanders.
Yeah, it's I mean, going into the season, I thought, okay, maybe we can sneak in. NFC is not so great conference. Maybe we can sneak in 6 or 7 seed. No, no, it's not even close.
I was thinking, like, 8-9 win range. That's probably enough in this conference. And oh wow, the 2-0 start was.
It was
unfortunately, there's that one team every year that starts undefeated, and it just gets fans a little too excited, and Washington's the culprit.
Yeah, Washington losing 9 of the last 11 after starting 2-0. Losing today to Miami 45-15 in Ron Rivera's first game post firing Jack Del Rio and Brent Wieselmeyer. So it wasn't pretty on either side of the ball throughout the entire game. The game felt so long as a Washington fan. It didn't feel like it ever ended.
Gosh.
It was that first half was bad. Let's just start. First quarter. 17 points in the first quarter for the Miami Dolphins. A big part of it was because of Tyreek Hill. Another great performance from him. 5 catches, 157 yards, 2 touchdowns. It really seems like he's pretty much cemented himself this season as the best wide receiver, at least this season in the NFL.
Yeah, I think I would have to agree. I mean, it kind of helps his case that Jefferson has been out for a while. But at the end of the day, like, I just don't think Justin Jefferson is elevating an offense like this. And I think we kind of learned even more this year just how valuable Kirk is to the Vikings offense in many ways. And with Tyreek, it's just like more than ever, he's taking these go balls to the house. Last year, Miami wasn't actually hitting on a ton of those deep shots, at least cleanly. And now they're just doing it on a consistent basis and it's like clockwork for him to just track the ball downfield or run under a ball from Tua that he chucks up against the blitz. So, I mean, I don't think there's anything more valuable than a receiver who can just be so reliable when you get the ball out there against the blitz. And that's kind of what allowed Miami to hit on 2 big plays today.
Yeah, and especially on that second touchdown, like that throw from Tua, it wasn't that great. He threw it on the opposite shoulder, and Tyreek made an incredible adjustment and was able to haul it in for a 60-yard, I believe, touchdown. So, I mean, that connection and kind of just like Mike McDaniel and what he's been able to do.
Oh, yeah.
I know a lot of people are saying greatest show on surf and stuff. So
great,
it really
Legion of Room.
Yeah, it really has looked like one of the best offenses probably ever for so far this season. So
probably, yeah. I mean, early in the season they were on an all-time pace, and it kind of slowed down a little bit, especially when we got into those big games, which is what got everyone wondering, how legit this team is. And I think this today was kind of the first time in a while where I'm like, oh yeah, it's hitting on all cylinders. But there could be a certain factor that has to do with that, as we might be talking about in a minute here.
But yeah, a big reason why Tyreek Hill went for 5 catches and 157 yards, like 100 plus in the first half, was this secondary from Washington.
Oh my God.
It was not good. No. You want to talk about first? Yeah, go ahead. Because
I'm just, I'm beginning to wonder at this point, how much talent does this defense really have? Like today, like as much as it's, as much as people love to dunk on Ron Rivera and everything, and he hasn't accomplished much in Washington, I just don't really know what he could do today. Like they were trying everything. Like they were blitzing, they were sitting back in zone. Tua was like carving up the middle of the field between the linebackers and the safeties when they play off. And then it's like, do you play off or do you press these guys and risk the big plays? Like I think more than anything, I think their secondary does have guys who are good in certain circumstances. Like, I think
Fuller.
Martin is good in certain circumstances. Fuller has been pretty decent all year. St. Juste has flashes. Forbes has flashes, bad moments everywhere, but the one place where they're not getting anything out of is the front seven, like the deep. I haven't seen them get any pressure since the trade deadline. Like legitimately, I've not seen them get any sort of pressure.
It's not even been since the trade deadline. It's been this entire season. Like guys like Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, I haven't heard their names get a sack in weeks. Weeks. I mean, there's months, a lot maybe.
It's doubles and triple teams because literally no one respects anyone who's rushing on the outside. I mean, I think like Allen and Payne have definitely been underwhelming to an extent, but God, I mean, sometimes I just feel like what can they even do? That's kind of the story of this Washington defense. Like, what do you do when the organization just allows this circus to keep happening? Like, what the organization accepted this? I mean, like, I don't know. The plan like this year is just to give up a bunch of points and give Hal a bunch of these game scripts where he has to throw the win, and it's the perfect way to evaluate him. I mean, I don't know. I kind of just feel like that's all they care about at this point.
Well, I mean, you did mention like Miami got up big time early, right?
Yep.
Sam Howell threw the least amount of pass attempts this entire season
and that was very weird.
By a wide margin. He only threw 23 times. His second lowest is 29, and his third lowest is in the 30s. So that was something that was kind of shocking to me, at least because
I
mean, Ron Rivera at halftime was like, "Oh, we're down big. You know, we got to stick with the run. We got to run the ball. You're down by 3 scores." It's like, what are we thinking? What's the connection here? I really don't know. And Sam Howell, again, it's kind of, they're doing like the opposite of what you think they should be doing. He's throwing the ball 45, 50 times a game he's thrown the ball 40 more times in each of the last 7 weeks. And now today he threw half of that. When you're down big, isn't that like the point of having a guy like Howell is you're now able to throw the ball and able to maybe like keep up with these high scoring games against these good offenses. I don't really know what it is at this point, but in that second half, not only did Howell only throw the ball 23 times in the entire game, but you were running the ball without Brian Robinson as well. Like Brian Robinson has been the most impactful player. I mean, I've watched every Commanders game this year. He's been the most impactful player on offense, like receivers, tight ends, running backs, everything. Guys like Terry hasn't shown up. Jahan hasn't showed up this year. Brian Robinson's been the most impactful player in the run and in the pass. And
I would agree.
Going down at halftime, and then you're still trying to run the ball with Chris Rodriguez.
Chris Rodriguez. That was a name I hadn't really heard much of all year. So that was something.
Yeah, it's embarrassing at this point seeing this team. It's like new feats every week. This team just does something that is just unprecedented, and once more losing by 30 here against Miami. It's bad. It's bad in Washington. What are your so the Tyreek Hill stuff in the first half was definitely the highlight for Miami. One of the more lowlights was definitely Jerome Baker getting friendly fired by his teammate. It was what are your thoughts? I haven't heard anything. Did you hear anything? Any update on Jerome Baker?
He said that he's gonna be back this year, but I don't really know what that means. I think possibly like week to week. Maybe he's back in like end of December or something. I don't really know, but as long as he's back for the playoffs, I mean that's all we're really thinking about at this point. Miami, pretty crazy, honestly, to think that they are already sealed the deal to be above 500 this year. But I will say what was encouraging is how well Duke Riley played behind him. I mean, he's been on the team for a while, and he played a lot more, I'd say, like early on into his career, 2020, 2021. So I trust them in those circumstances, but I do love Baker. He's very solid. He got burned on that play pretty bad, but at the end of the day, like how many linebackers are covering Curtis Samuel on a wheel route in space. So I hope he's back, but I'm honestly not too worried as far as when it comes down to winning games in the playoffs, if he's going to be back or if Duke Riley just continues to play like this.
Yeah, it was unfortunate seeing him go down, but again, like as long as he's back for the playoffs, you're 9-3. Like you've got a playoff spot locked up. Yeah, right now it's kind of just making sure you win the division. And again, the game against the Ravens, week 17, seems like that game's going to be for the conference and for the 1 seed. So
for the 1 seed, I mean,
it's
Jacksonville will probably hang around. Kansas City probably will hang around. I mean, it's going to come down to week 17 and 18. Like we don't have to pretend anyone's out of the running yet.
But it'll definitely still be a big game.
It'll be big for sure.
Who gets the 1 seed? But today 45 points for Miami, 38 coming on offense, and Ron Rivera's first game play calling since he begun his tenure in Washington, since 2019. It was his first game back play calling, and it was not pretty.
Tough matchup for your first ever game calling plays for a team.
Yeah, it was a little tough. But overall, again, there's really not much you can do at this point if you're Washington. You're 4-9, and playoffs you're out of the picture. I think you can probably get eliminated in week 15. Is my guess is probably where this team will get eliminated. But again, you're fighting. You got the 4th overall pick in the draft right now, out of this week. And say that again. What you say?
4th overall. I didn't
realize
it was that low.
Yeah, it's at 4-9. We have one of the easiest strength of schedules out of the lower, out of the bad teams. So, I mean, this team, the 1 game back from Arizona with 3, and so Arizona's looking pretty good right now. I know they beat a Kenny Pickett-less team, but Arizona can maybe pick up another 1 or 2 before the end of the year. I wouldn't be surprised. So Washington is sitting very, very high, and kind of makes you wonder if a new head coach comes in, a new general manager comes in. You're evaluating Sam Howell right now. Well, if you have the 3rd or 4th pick in the draft, you're kind of set up to take a quarterback. Maybe trade up for a guy like Drake May or Caleb Williams with one of the first 2 picks. But I think it really could be considered from a new head coach or a new general manager to not move on into next season with Sam Howell and instead pick up one of the younger quarterbacks. What are your thoughts on that?
I honestly think unless Arizona lands at the number 2 pick, I don't think that trading up is really going to be on the table for anyone. I think if it's the Bears and the Patriots, they're both taking May and Caleb Williams. So ultimately, I think that's really all it comes down to. If Washington gets a top 2 pick, they probably will replace Sam Howell. It's usually these discussions are much more nuanced and complicated, and there are a lot of different scenarios, but I really think that's ultimately what it comes down to. I think Washington would replace him if they got that type of chance. I don't think they would replace him with Jaden Daniels or JJ McCarthy.
Bo Nix.
Bo Nix. Yeah, I think that I think that Sam Howell has solidified himself as someone who in a lot of circumstances would earn a second year. He's shown all the physical tools. He's shown that, he can lead the league in passing yards and lead a high octane offense at times. Just with a little more help from the defense. I mean, that's kind of all he needs to put up high level offensive production. So I mean, in all honesty, would I choose Caleb Williams or Drake May over Sam Howell? Probably, yeah, but I wouldn't, even if I had the option, I don't think it would be worth it to compromise a bunch of assets when you have a pretty promising young quarterback in the building. So yeah, I mean, for most teams, it's a more complicated situation, but for Washington, I really think it's that simple. Yeah. If he plays you into that position, you probably replace him.
But yeah, Sam Howell, again, like you mentioned, leading the league in passing yards, also leading the league in interceptions, leading in the league in sacks. So it's kind of, I know some stats have made him look like one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL this season, but other stats say definitely different.
I mean, it's a roller coaster. I'm willing to acknowledge he has been not at the top of his game last few weeks. Hasn't been his worst. Certainly hasn't been his best either.
Yeah, it's been a kind of a
it's a very fluid situation.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. I don't really know how many words I have it for now anymore. Like 4-game losing streak for Washington. Howell in this stretch has thrown 4 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. So it's
like a Madden player.
Yeah, he's like, okay, so at Seattle, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Very next game, 1 touchdown, 3 picks. Like against the Giants defense. So like
that game really was where everything just took a complete turn for the worst. I mean, after that Seattle game, I think that you could kind of sell yourself on, hey, he's playing clean football. Defense isn't a total catastrophe. And then Tommy DeVito comes in, lights you up, and then Dak lights you up, and then Tua lights you up, and now this is where you're at.
Last 4 weeks, the defense, or at least the other teams, put up 29, 31, and then in the last 2 weeks, Washington has been outscored by 90-25 in the last 2 weeks.
Oh my gosh!
So
that's not fireable. I don't really know what is.
Yeah, I feel like at this point, I think it's come, especially with the firing of Jack Del Rio about just over a week ago. It's really Ron Rivera is going to be the head coach to the end of the season. There's no other way around it. Like
it would have happened after the Dallas game if it was going to happen, if we're being honest. And it's probably like, are you really interested in making Bieniemy the head coach at this point? I'm wondering what your thoughts would be on that.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like Bieniemy has not had
anyone like that badly. I don't know. I mean, you got a good tanking strategy going, just having a bunch of draft capital at the end of the year. Like, sometimes you got to weigh that. Like, that's what a lot of teams are probably thinking about, like the Bears, like the Chargers. You know, how much do I want to lose? How much do I want to evaluate the people I have in the building?
Yeah, Panthers does not really matter. We found that out today, so they're pretty bad. But Washington again. You mentioned Eric Bieniemy. I mentioned it on a previous episode, but like Eric Bieniemy, he has not called the greatest games. Like he's also had a roller coaster himself.
It's like him and Howell. Like I just think, you know, I don't know. It's all so fluid, and I try not to be reactionary because I do think that Bieniemy overall, his body of work suggests that he's probably overperforming expectations on offense going into the year, but I don't know if it's so outstanding where you're just like, wow, you got to make this guy the head coach. You got to pair him up with Howell for years to come. Right. So he's basically made things as difficult as possible when it comes to what you're going to do when you fire Ron Rivera.
Yeah, exactly. Because we fire Ron Rivera, you're not going to interview Bieniemy for the head coaching role and then bring him back as the offensive coordinator. Like,
no, he's either work. You either promote him or he's going to go somewhere else. Like
exactly. And
that's how it always works.
Where would he go? I guess back to maybe Kansas City, because I don't think after this season's performance, I don't think he's going to get many head coaching interviews. So I mean, maybe, but like
he probably will because he's with the Rooney rule and all. He's always been a very popular candidate, and I'd say like between him and Brian Flores, those are probably 2 of the best African-American candidates in the league right now. Probably also Raheem Morris in LA. So I think he will continue to get interviews, but I don't know how many teams could seriously be desperate to hire him. I mean,
right. Yeah. And how this year's been really inconsistent. His play calling has been inconsistent. Are you worried about? I think you kind of a little bit answered already, but are you worried about Eric Bieniemy as a play caller after this season?
Like I mean, like we were just talking about, I think that he's either going to be the head coach or nowhere next year. So I don't really know. Right. Like, I would bring him back as the offensive coordinator. Like, I think that he's qualified to keep being that, but I don't think I would make him the head coach. Like everything that he does is from shotgun. It's like he's trying to run a Big 12 offense in the NFL, and that's just not how things work. Like, no under center stuff. Like there's no real variety. The screens got telegraphed today. Terry McLaurin, you're not using your best receiver. You're basically just using him as a clear out guy most of the time. Like he's making zero effort to like force feed him underneath. the way like the Eagles might do stuff with AJ Brown, or the Cowboys do things with CeeDee Lamb, like all the other premier receivers in the NFC East. Like Washington fans probably see it well. Like there's a concerted effort to get them the ball in a variety of ways, and it feels like with Terry, they're just like, oh, you know,
just any other.
We could use a few contested catches down the field every now and then, but otherwise, like, you're just out there doing cardio, as he said.
Yeah, like, I was gonna mention that he came up with a quote post game, like actual Twitter meme, like perfect quote. Just that I was just doing cardio out there. Like that's a new low for this team. We're getting Twitter memes out of our press conferences. That's a new low. Some other stats for Terry. This is his second donut game in his career. 0 catches, 0 yards, 0 touchdowns. Second time in his career. Oh no, third time in his career actually. Happened twice against the Cowboys. And then he's Deron Bland still has more than 2 times as many touchdowns as him this season. So that's bad. And then he's also only hit 90 yards this season once. And that's exactly 90. He is 0 100-yard games, only 1 90-yard game, and that's it. That just shows like they're not using him. Like they don't think he's. I mean, in the past, like with the Scott Turner offense, they were throwing up 20, 30-yard passes downfield, and now like it's it's not close to that.
Scott Turner, like
how was Scott Turner using him more than Eric?
I don't want to be a Scott Turner apologist, but my God, it's an all-time low for probably the best player in the franchise over the last 5 years or so. I mean, and I really thought he'd be a good fit with Howell. Like Terry McLaurin, he's the exact receiver you want to be aggressive downfield with. Like that's kind of his thing. Like just put it anywhere in the area, and he's an amazing contested catcher. He can adjust anything. You don't have to throw him these perfect breadbasket balls. Like,
yeah. And that's exactly what we've been doing. Like the screens, Jahan Dotson, who I thought was going to be in for a massive year or two.
Oh my God, I was in on all of it.
disappeared, straight up disappeared. Not like he's not in this offense. I haven't seen him. I mean, I'm wearing his jersey right now, but like I haven't seen him in the last like 4 weeks, 5 weeks maybe. He hasn't showed up on the year. He has I think he has 3. Hold on, I'm pulling the stats up real quick. Yeah. On the year, 450 yards, 4 touchdowns. But I guess he's picked it up as of – actually, no, not really. But in his last 4 games, 0 catches, 0 yards against Seattle, 3 catches, 23 yards against the Giants, 5 for 52 against Dallas, and 2 for 23 against Miami. That's not what I thought Jahan Dotson would be doing this year. I thought he would be like 1A, 1B with Terry McLaurin.
I really did think
the production. I thought he – I had one of my hottest takes at the beginning of the season was Jahan Dotson was going to outproduce Terry McLaurin this season, and that's not the case. No, so
it's very weird. I would say how much of an effort there is to like funnel receiving opportunities to like the running backs and Logan Thomas instead of Terry and Dotson. Like that to me has been the biggest problem with this offense. Like we know who Logan Thomas is.
Yeah.
Like we know who Antonio Gibson is. Like, I don't know. That's probably my biggest gripe with Bieniemy.
Well,
there's only so much you can do with that offensive line, but
well, like I mean, look at Kansas City right now, and they're down by like 11 to Green Bay, but
they are down by 11. Wow.
Yeah, it's bad. But last season when Bieniemy was in Kansas City, like he had one of the greatest tight ends of all time in Travis Kelce, and his receivers weren't really like top tier. Like Jahan Dotson and Terry McLaurin last year were both better than any receiver that Kansas City had, and so when he comes over to Washington, I don't know if like it's kind of just with Sam Howell and always wanting to go to a tight end, like tight ends being the best friend for a young quarterback. Or just there's like Bieniemy just drawing up so many plays for a tight end for a 33-year-old Logan Thomas that is not Travis Kelce. He's not Travis Kelce.
He's not Travis Kelce.
yeah,
for sure. Especially not after the catch. I mean, shoot, we need better. you need better yards after catch guys with that offensive line.
Yeah.
And you have them in the building, and you're just not using them as much.
Yeah,
but at tight end, he's not the guy moving forward, and that's why I'd say, like, if you want to move forward with Bieniemy and Sam Howell, like, Brock Bowers would be an awesome fit in this offense. I mean, really and truly, like, that's the guy. If you're so set on this vision, like, that's the guy you gotta go after in the draft. So
yeah, there's a lot of stuff in the future for Washington that there's a lot of question marks. There's going to be a lot of movement, whatever Washington does this offseason, because, I mean, this team is not, like, forget about the coaching and all that. The talent of this team, is this team even talented? Like, is this team on the roster
consider, like,
even good?
I think
more. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, keep going. I was
just saying, like, more and more, like, this team, like, week after week is putting up 19 points on offense, 10, 15, and each week they're putting up, like, the other team's offense putting up 30 plus, 40 plus, and I'm just beginning to wonder, is Jonathan Allen really the Jonathan Allen he was 2 years ago? Is Deron Payne isn't contract year Deron Payne anymore. He's got that contract, and now he's putting up his worst season of his career. So those guys, and then Terry McLaurin, if you're not going to use him, might as well trade him. He's going to be 29 after the season. He's going to be entering the second to last year of his contract, and by the time this team has been rebuilt, his contract is going to be expiring. And right now, it's from here on out, I feel like his trade value is going to decrease. So this offseason, I wouldn't be surprised if, I know it's early, I know there's still games left to play, but I wouldn't be surprised if one of these more veteran face of the franchise guys that Washington has kind of built their franchise around, like a Jonathan Allen or Terry McLaurin, gets moved, because they're not on the path of a rebuild. Like, their career isn't on the same path as the rebuild. So that's just kind of my thoughts on it. But
I mean, I would say the guy specifically I'd be looking out for this offseason is Jonathan Allen, because he has, I'm sure that you're aware of this, but he's been making a lot of post-game comments where he's just like, I'm tired of this, you know. He said something specifically today that was pretty interesting. He was like, I'm tired of trying to build the attitude of something. I have.
Yeah, he said. So yeah, I'm tired of trying to build character. My character's been built up enough. I'm trying to win.
Yeah, that's not great. That is that's where I begin to feel like he's not really thinking about Washington. He's not really worried about winning in Washington. Like, he just wants to go somewhere. I mean, we remember what he said after that Giants game about a month or so ago, where he's just like, I'm tired of it.
Yeah.
And it just seems like I mean, of course, you're probably going to lose Jonathan Allen when you show no effort to give him help on the defensive line with the edge rushers, and he's just getting doubled all the time. Like, of course, he's going to start to become disgruntled when that's not translating to any defensive success or any sort of winning. I mean, his contract he's got 2 more years, and Terry has 2 more years.
I
think we're as crazy as it is to say, I bet for Washington fans, we're kind of officially on Terry and John Allen trade watch starting this offseason.
Yeah, I agree. It's both of those guys, like Jahan Dotson. I think you probably want to keep him around because it's only been 2 years for him, but some of these franchise guys, like Washington also has 20-something free agents this offseason, like 23 or 24. And they're not just like backups. So like Cam Curl is a free agent. Yeah. I don't want to say Trust. I don't think Trust Way is a free agent, but like Joey Sly, we're going to need a new kicker next year as a free agent. A whole lot of the secondary, Kendall Fuller is a free agent. Like, there's going to be guys that you're going to have to make some tough decisions when you're the new general manager and the new head coach coming in, because it's going to be interesting to see if this team truly goes to a full rebuild or if it tries to survive with what it has and try and go for one last push this offseason with a new head coach. So it's going to be interesting to watch. But yeah, any other thoughts on the Dolphins game today?
Not particular. I mean, we kind of hit it on the spot, you know. Big offensive day for Miami. What would you really expect from the Washington defense? And
yeah,
the Washington offense has had its moments, but today it really it reared its ugly head, and that's kind of been the last 3 weeks for them. So
yep.
A lot of organizational questions coming up. It's just not as clear as maybe even I would have thought it was.
Yeah, for Miami, 4 of the last 5 games are at home for you guys, which is pretty nice, especially.
That is pretty awesome, and it doesn't feel
December
like we've been on the road that often. So,
yeah, especially in December too. So like,
that's
I know, yeah, weather and stuff. So 4 of the last 5 are at home. For Washington, the 4th overall pick as of right now. It's got the bye week next week. Then the Rams, Jets, Cowboys. Rams, Jets, 49ers, Cowboys. Finish off.
Jets is going to be a tough, who wants it less type of game.
yeah. It's well, I mean, what if Aaron Rodgers comes back? Like,
oh boy, I'll say that will be interesting though to see what Hal can do against that defense, because history this year says that if you play well against that defense, you're probably a pretty good quarterback.
Yeah,
so that'll be interesting, I guess. Unless that defense is just all retired by then, like pulling Vontae Davis at this point, I wouldn't blame them.
Yeah, I would not either. That team is pretty bad. But if Aaron Rodgers does come back, which like some reports were saying that was the game he's aiming to come back for, it'll be interesting to see. And I don't personally, if I'm the Jets, by that time I'm probably going to be eliminate from playoff contention. Why with this offensive line? Yeah, it's probably a bad decision. But yeah, that's pretty much for the Dolphins Commanders game. Now, also today, I know this isn't really NFL related, but the college football playoff, the committee had to make probably one of the toughest decisions, if not the toughest.
I think it was the toughest.
The toughest decision in college football playoff history. What were your thoughts on them choosing Alabama over Florida State?
I really think that a lot of people are just speaking a little too confidently on the situation. Like, for one, you've got the outraged Florida State supporters where just like this is ridiculous, and then on the other hand, you've got the Alabama supporters that just think they should get in every year no matter what. Because I remember last year we had a similar debate, because I remember when TCU lost to Kansas State. And then there was Alabama with those 2 losses, but, it was really close against Tennessee, and it was really close against LSU. And everyone was like, oh, the better team. And I don't think the committee handled it well, in the sense that if they were going to go with the 4 best teams, you probably got to get Georgia in there. And as much as it would suck, like Georgia was one of the 4 best teams in the country. So I think there was a lot of inconsistency. Yeah. Also, I don't know if you were paying attention to Liberty getting selected for the New Year's Six game over SMU, when SMU, I would say, was kind of in the same boat as Alabama, where it's like they weren't undefeated, but they felt like the better team with better wins by the end of the year. So I don't know, man. I wish the committee had. I think I was of the belief that Alabama should get in, because at the end of the day, it's 13-0 versus 12-1. Like, Alabama has done enough, and they beat the committee's #1 team in the country. So I'm glad they respected it in that sense. But I just wish they'd been more consistent with it across the board. I don't really understand putting Florida State above Georgia if you're really going by that criteria. I do think at the end of the day, what matters though is that they got the top 4 right, and the good news is that we won't have to have any more debates like this in history. Like, this is it. I mean, next year, if all the 9-3 Penn State fans want to cry, I don't think anyone's going to feel that bad for them.
That's true.
Like, win your games, man.
Yeah.
But I'm certainly excited for the semifinals. I think they let in Alabama. They let in a team that has a real shot to go and win it all. So it's going to be a great playoff. It's going to give the people what they've wanted after some really kind of brutal blowouts over the last few years. With that, it's most deserving.
Yeah, I was thinking, so I'm for the Alabama over FSU stuff. Like, I know FSU undefeated season. The committee's been so inconsistent. Now people are saying, oh, they're 2017 UCF or whatever. But like, Alabama is the better team. They have the better wins over Florida State. I know Florida State beat LSU at the beginning of the year, but again, I don't want to say
like.
Yeah, the injury.
Let's be honest, man.
It's kind of big.
The committee has made it clear that they will factor injuries into their decisions for years. I don't understand why this is such a shock for everyone. And people are like, oh, well, remember Ohio State with their third-string quarterback when they won it all? Well, Ohio State won the Big Ten championship like 58-0. Like, it was obvious that they were still one of the 4 best teams in the country. So,
yeah, it's I mean, the first 2, Michigan and Washington. I saw you would rather have Washington over Michigan.
I did think that was a bit of a tough one. But at the end of the day, now that they let Alabama in, I'm not sure if that is an advantage for Michigan. Like, if it was Florida State, heck yeah, I want the 1 seed.
Michigan, Alabama is going to be a great game. Alabama could definitely win that one. And then Washington and Texas. Those are 2 offenses that I'm very interested in. They're 2 real offenses, not any college fake offenses. So like Quinn Ewers, I mean, I know right now for him it sounds like he's going to be coming back for another year.
Yep.
But if he performs well against Washington, if he has a great game against whoever they play in the national championship, which Texas again has a real shot at winning the national championship this year, like if Texas is truly back, does that mean Quinn Ewers, does he actually declare for the draft? So what are your thoughts on like Ewers' draft situation?
I personally think, like, watching the tape and everything, I could not take him seriously as a prospect as of right now. I would not, definitely wouldn't call him a first-round pick. I don't think I would even call him a second-round pick because he's not very mobile. He's not great at reading the field. He's not that accurate. He's got some nice arm talent, but
that's it.
I don't really know about that. The Texas offense is also very much like Tennessee last year. We remember all the Hendon Hooker debates.
Yeah.
I just think it'd benefit for him to come back for a year with lesser weapons and show that he can do it in a more straightforward offense where they put more responsibility on him. But you never know if the playoff, like this time last year, I don't think anyone was talking about CJ Stroud as if he was in serious consideration for the #1 pick until he did what he did to Georgia. And we see this all the time. These quarterbacks make big statements on the big stage, and they just feel like there's too much momentum for them not to declare. So I'm certainly excited to see Penix against a good Texas defense. We know he's going to get a tough test in the national championship if he makes it. I'm even excited to see Milroe. Like, personally, Milroe at this point probably intrigues me even more than Ewers.
Milroe looks good. He looks good.
Milroe has obviously a great rusher. He's had his moments as a passer. So if he could just put it all together and have some sort of like CJ Stroud-esque performance in the playoff, like, you never know, man. He could really sneak up the boards throughout draft season. I think a lot of people could talk themselves into him if they look through the tape and see that he actually is a pretty smart quarterback, similarly to Anthony Richardson last year, where I think that became more apparent as the process went on and people were more willing to bet on the tools when it's like, oh, yeah, he knows what he's doing. Just got to sharpen up the mechanics a little bit. So I'm excited. I'm not McCarthy even. Like, McCarthy, I'm not in on, but
I'm not in.
Scenario where the thing with him is it's not like he makes mistakes. It's just they don't ask him to do anything. So if they do ask him to throw the ball a lot in the playoffs and he lights
more than 8 times.
Yeah, I mean, like, he's not making bad throws. There's just not much tape. Like,
right. Yeah. I mean, like throwing the ball 8 times.
Like, it's a very weird situation. I wouldn't say I'm really sold on any of the 4 quarterbacks, but I will say that they all have the potential to play themselves probably into the second round if they're really good for these next 2 games. So
yeah. But that'll do it for this week's episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. Nico, where can people find you with your content?
Well, on Twitter, it's Elite Takes with an underscore. Also on Instagram, it's Elite Takes _ and then TikTok, it's just Elite Takes. So, but you should probably be able to find me without the underscore. So, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for hopping on the pod again. This Dolphins game was definitely a journey, like we mentioned. Yeah, that's pretty much it for this episode.
It was a journey. It was. I wish you the best on the rest of your journey. It's going to be an interesting final month for the Commanders here.
Yeah, it's draft season for Washington fans if you haven't already noticed. So it's
time to fire up PFF during
PFF.com/mock
at any moment.
Yeah,
it's a fun time sometimes. Hey, man.
Yeah, we'll probably do fun. Yeah, definitely. Next week's episode will probably be mock draft stuff.
Mock draft stuff. There we go.
Yeah, for the bye week.
That time of the year. It's that time.
Yeah, it is that time of the year. But yeah, Nico, thank you for hopping on the podcast again. It was a great game, somewhat for the Dolphins and Washington game.
Great game in my books.
Yeah, it was great watching the Dolphins offense.
Game of the year.
And yeah, I can't wait to see Washington Bears Tuesday night on Hard Knocks. That'll be it for this week's episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. See you guys next one. Peace.